Okay, pro wrestling fans, Shane McKenna of Wrestling Fans Facebook group made a wonderful request for a video. So out of friendship to Shane, I'm going to honor that request. Although his question, as worded, is I think there's some fault in the question that Shane asked. No offense, Shane, because we've already discussed this privately. But what Shane wanted to know, his question was, Mike, pro wrestling aficionado, historian, expert, Mike Messier, Sir Mikey Messier, as Vince Russo calls me. Mike, how do you feel AEW would be doing if the majority of their talent wasn't ex-WWE stars? And you may or may not see the fallacy in that question, how it's worded. And I said to him, Shane, already, but I'll say it to you now, the loyal subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube watcher. The fallacy, the error in the question is saying that the majority of AEW stars are ex-WWE talent. Prove to me that the majority would be more than 50%. Well, I think what's going on here is that in reality, someone put a statistic up that the talent roster of AEW was 76% had never wrestled in WWE. Now, I don't know, for instance, if they're counting someone like the Young Bucks tag team, who I believe just did a skit with, I think it was Miz and Morrison or Team RKO making fun of DX. So I think the Young Bucks appeared in the WWE ring and were even on SmackDown, but it was like a parody segment. They weren't wrestling. So then there's other people like Kenny Omega. Well, I believe he was evaluated and was trained briefly by the former Hugh Morris in Florida Championship Wrestling, one of those developmental groups for WWE, 10 or 15 years ago, but it didn't work out. I believe, if I have that story correct, he didn't like how Hugh Morris was training people. They had disagreements, and he left. And Omega talked about that with Stone Cold Steve Austin on a podcast. So you can look into all that. So I guess the question would be, are you counting people who have ever stepped foot into a WWE ring? Are you counting people that were featured predominantly? If you're going to do that, you can say, well, James Storm is a former WWE star because he wrestled in NXT for 2 or 3 weeks. So you tell me, folks. You know what I mean? You could say that, who's that tag team? Eddie Edwards, the American Wolves, or the Wolves, they appeared in NXT for a week and were gone. Like, they did a tryout or they did a test run, whatever you want to call it. Our old buddy Chris Benoit wrestled 4 matches in WWF at the time in 1995. Did 4 matches on a tryout thing in one night, but he didn't get signed. So, so then you have to say, well, if you're going to count former WWE stars, and probably the easiest couple of guys to pick on here or to use as examples are Cody Rhodes, the former Cody Rhodes, coming over as Cody, and say the RIP, Luke Harper, Brody Lee. Yes, they were former WWE stars who came in, and those were your first 2 TNT champions. And of course, Darby Allin was your third guy to hold the belt. Not the third title reign, but the third guy to hold the belt was Darby Allin. Well, did Darby Allin ever wrestle in the WWE? No. Cody and Brody both wrestled in the WWE, and to my knowledge, Brody Lee held the Intercontinental title briefly. I'm not sure if Cody did or not, to be honest with you. I'm drawing a blank on that. I think he had the tag team title at least a few times. But the point is, those guys were kind of up, mid-card guys in WWE, and they come over and they hold the upper mid-card secondary, title in AEW. Now, of course, there was a stretch when the AEW title seemed to be more significant because it was getting more airtime than the AEW World title during certain times of the year, because Moxley was not on television for months on end. So you tell me what was going on with Moxley, okay? They should have had him lose the title earlier. Anyway, going back to this point, this conversation, I think that the perspective is slanted and skewed towards thinking that these WWE talents dominate AEW as it is, because basically their first champion AEW's was Chris Jericho, followed by Jon Moxley. So that's two, okay? So that's two former WWE stars. Then you had Omega. Now, like we said, what do you say for Omega? Technically, yes. I guess he's been in the confines of WWE, but he never appeared on WWE television. Okay. Look at the tag team title champions. The first champions, I believe it was Kazarian and the guy that teams up with Paige now, the Scorpio Sky. Now, as far as I know, those guys never wrestled in WWE. The next tag team champions were, once again, Omega and Hangman Page. Has Hangman Page ever been in WWE? Not that I've seen. And who are your tag champs after that? The Young Bucks, FTR. So, yeah, obviously FTR, but FTR was successful in WWE. They come over. So, I don't think it's the majority is the point. And he said, well, gee, Mike, you've listed all these guys. Okay, Dr. Britt Baker, Shikita, or Hikira Shikita, Riho, all these women were not in WWE, okay? Tessa Rosa, what's her name? Thunder Rosa was never in WWE. Jade Cargill's a rookie, never in WWE. All those people that wrestled Cody, like all the QT Marshall, never WWE. All of QT Marshall guys, never WWE. Okay. Like I said, Hangman Page, Darby Allin, who else? So, I can understand why people think it's skewed, but here's the thing. Look at this guy, Macho Man Randy Savage. Oh, he's a WWE guy that went to WCW. Well, how about he's an ICW guy that went to Memphis, that went to the WWF? Did I just lose you? Did that level of intelligence just escape you? In other words, Randy Macho Man Savage, his father, Angelo Poffo, owned his own promotion, a small promotion. And they were kind of like a outlaw promotion, as Cornette calls it. And they ended up feuding with the Memphis, feuding with Lawler. And then, Savage makes a huge name for himself in Memphis and goes to WWF. Do you say former WWE, former Memphis wrestler who Vince McMahon stole? Vince McMahon always making the most of these Memphis talents. Nobody ever says that. Well, WWE, they had to rely on former AWA stars Hulk Hogan, Mean Gene Okerlund, Jesse the Body Ventura, and Ken Patera to get the WWF over. Okay, so idiots and assholes who are just suck on Vince McMahon's nipple for their WWE milk don't realize that all these talents in the 80s into the 90s were all coming from other places. Guess where the fuck Roddy Piper made himself a star? Starrcade 83, Shit for Brains, Dog Collar Chain Match. Don Morocco, Gordon Soley, Saturday Night TBS 605, Georgia Championship fucking Wrestling. Do your fucking homework, get educated. Vince didn't make as many stars as you fucking think. Even the Ultimate Warrior was big in Texas. You can see the Dingo Warrior getting huge pops in Texas, assholes. Look, everybody comes from somewhere. So that type of, it's just based on this type of mentality is coming from a generation that was born on WWE because there was not much competition. And the only competition was TNA. Guess where all the fucking what's that goddamn chant? This is awesome. This is awesome. Clap, 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 clap. That's a TNA chant, Shit for Brains. That chant, this is awesome, and you still got it. That all came from fucking TNA. It did. And I don't even like TNA, Total Nonstop Action Wrestling I'm talking about. I was not a huge fan of that fucking... I was in like 2005 to 2007. Then it dropped off throughout the years. But if people don't want to give credit that half of these fucking annoying fan chants, "This is awesome," and "You've still got it," those were fucking from TNA Impact Wrestling, the Impact Zone. Those fucking chants. What else? AJ Styles. Do you ever hear them say, AJ Styles, who learned his craft and had years of training in TNA, Total Non-Stop Action Wrestling, and before that, Ring of Honor. They never say that. They never say CM Punk, who cut his teeth in Ring of Honor for years and had some dalliances in Total Non-Stop Action Wrestling. They never say that. Daniel Bryan, you know what I mean? Look at all the promotions he was in. Okay, Ring of Honor and everywhere else. I mean, look, I was talking to, I believe, Dr. Mike Lano on a podcast recently. I think it was the Dan and Benny in the Ring podcast. And Dr. Mike, I believe, was saying, oh, PWG was the predecessor to All Elite Wrestling. Okay? I believe that's who said it, Dr. Mike. If I got that wrong, my apologies. But I'm probably accurate, as I usually am. But Dr. Mike's saying PWG was the predecessor to All Elite Wrestling. Well, before Dr. Mike said that, I was always thinking Beyond Wrestling, that I went to see in Providence, Rhode Island a bunch of times. Beyond Wrestling was the predecessor to All Elite Wrestling. The point is, there's probably a bunch of these different companies with what I called, at the time, kind of this postmodern wrestling. You know, like this postmodern wrestling, it's hard-hitting. You'd go to a bar and see this fucking wrestling. There wouldn't be chairs. You'd be eating a fucking, sausage with nacho cheese dip on a food cart outside. All this, whatever the fuck. Millennial crap. No chairs. Everyone's standing around. The shows are 4.5 hours long. And they'd have all these gimmicky wrestlers, but the wrestling was still good. I mean, there was a lot of these promotions, and what I'm saying, Beyond Wrestling, which I've actually found on Pluto TV, this whole channel called Pro Wrestling. If you happen to have a smart TV, dig around in there. You might have this Pro Wrestling channel that's got all types of weird wrestling on it. But the point is, Dr. Mike on the West Coast thinking that PWG, which is the thumb in the ass league, as I call it, okay, he's thinking they're the predecessor to AEW. I'm thinking Beyond Wrestling's the predecessor to AEW. You probably go to New York, you probably go to the Midwest, other parts of the country, the South, wherever, and there's probably all types of, this indie-rific stuff that was going on in the 2000 decades. That Dragon Gate Pro Wrestling was very much like AEW aesthetically, okay? So, this barrel of dog shit that some wrestling fans have bought into, that AEW, the majority of their stars is from WWE. I don't think so. I think the numbers, the balance, was MJF? I guess he was on fucking NXT. I mean, no, that's the other shit for brain. That's EC3 I'm thinking of. So MJF was not a fucking... he did an extra work thing where Samoa Joe smashes him in the fucking dressing room. So you've got these little cameos, but I mean, cunt, fuck. Do you see the goddamn point here? I mean, I'm not going to sit there and make a goddamn list like a fucking idiot about who was there, but off the top of my fucking head, I mean, the numbers are Dr. Britt. I mean, in WWE, who is not from somewhere else at some point? I would say the biggest name is Roman Reigns. He was raised to the system. He was birthed into the Vince McMahon hospital and raised as an infant of wrestling into the orphanage of WWE, raised in the system, okay? But most people come from somewhere else. And wrestling fans just have to be, it's supposed to be independent contractors, right? So what the fuck? I mean, if that's the case, they're all independent, right? Shit for brains? Okay. But to get to the question, now that we've sliced and diced that, let's get to the question of what would it be like, I guess, in this fictional fucking world with no AEW talents at all? Like, no WWE talents that are now AEW talents. Like, if you didn't have Jericho, if you didn't have fucking Moxley, I don't know if it would be successful or what would it look like. I guess it's what's it trying to look like? Well, I mean, if you're still counting the Young Bucks, do you count Cody? Is he not there? I mean, because I thought Cody answering Meltzer's tweet was the whole fucking reason for that All In show in the first place. So, are we taking Cody out of this goddamn federation? It's interesting. I mean, I guess Darby Allin, as big as he is now, would be even bigger. Are you counting Sting as a former WWE talent? Christ. I mean, you'd still have the young... I mean, fuck. I guess you still count the Young Fucks, even though they technically appeared on WWE TV. And they could be feuding with the South Coast Pop, or whatever the fuck it's called. The West Coast Swing, the SCU. You know what I mean? I guess the big thing of having Moxley... But I think, to be honest with you... Although Moxley gets good reactions and Moxley has good matches, he's main evented a lot of their pay-per-views. Has he really been a fucking game changer? Like, have you seen Moxley on The View talking up AEW? No. So I don't know. As far as the other things, I mean, fuck, man. It's an interesting question, but if you're trying to like Back to the Future where you wipe out all the siblings, what would you have left? I guess you'd probably say that Hangman Page would have been elevated by now, because he's not much different than he was in the beginning. So maybe you'd have Hangman Page as your fucking AEW champion by now. Maybe he would have been the first champion if Jericho wasn't there. Who would you have had? Hangman Page versus Omega? You tell me. So anyway, I think it's an interesting question, but like I said, half of this or 2/3 of this video, I had to slaughter and decimate the premise of the question, because I think that's a misnomer of many of you wrestling fans. Oh, it's just WWE talent. Okay, Hulk Hogan was just an AWA talent. Andre the Giant was just, a Canadian talent. Demolition was just a couple of, guys cast off from the territories. You had your old Mid-Atlantic Crusher Khrushchev with your old Mass Superstar from Georgia and everywhere else. I mean, I try to explain these things. People don't get it. LOD, Legion of Doom, they were just a couple of old Crockett guys that Vince brought in. Where would the WWF be? Where would the WWE be without former talents from other places? What the fuck? The Rock. Oh, The Rock is from Memphis, so he's just a Memphis talent. Steve Austin, WCW cast off. You know what I mean? So people are shit for brains. They don't apply the lessons from the past to the lessons of today. Their brains don't operate on that high level of function. They can't put something from this era into this era. They can't learn the lesson here and apply it to now. It escapes them. It's beyond them. I try to fucking help. I try to be a translator of intelligence to morons, and I try to bring the morons to a higher level of intellect, which is difficult at times, but I think I do a fairly good job of it. Okay, folks. It's July 3rd. Look, if you want to shit on AEW, I'll give you a fucking lesson. I've mentioned this a few times. I'm in fucking Jacksonville, and today I'm wearing my goddamn Macho Man shirt. Some guy's in the fucking restaurant. He's literally wearing a hat that says America with a fucking apostrophe. He's got his 2 sons with him. I assume they're his 2 sons, unless he's just going about town with other people's children. And he says to me, "Nice shirt." And I say, "Oh, thanks. Macho Man was one of the best. He was from Florida, blah, blah, blah." And then I happen to say something to the effect of, "There's wrestling in Jacksonville now, don't you?" And he said, "What?" And I said, "There's AEW. AEW's in Jacksonville. They have a show on." He goes, "Oh, I think I might have heard something about that." And then he goes about his business. He says, what was that name of that company again? AEWA? I said AEW. It's a Daly's place. It happens every week. And they'll be back on August 4th. Now, every week is over now. But the point is, the poor fellow, here he is in Jacksonville with 2 young sons. He could be going to the fucking AEW, enjoying the goddamned wrestling, raising his sons on non-WWE fucking wrestling, and yet he knows nothing about it. So there's a fucking communication problem here with AEW. They're not reaching the people in the town of Jacksonville to enrich them and to excite the town, to light the town on fire. That's why some of these shows like Blood and Guts and the pay-per-view Double or Nothing, you see these big packed houses, and other times it's like there's not many people there. So what the fuck? I can only do so goddamn much from the outside. These companies want to hire me as a producer, as a marketer. We can talk business like gentlemen, but I mean, come the fuck on. I mean, if you're gonna do a goddamn show and you have fucking tickets to sell, then let the people in your own goddamn community know about it. Any fucking way. Shane, I hope that answers your question, buddy. I had to decimate the question. I had to dissect it. And then I had to do the reach around and answer it. And then I had to do this and that and the other. And then I went to a side topic. It's a goddamned Saturday night. It's July 3rd. Everyone have a safe and wonderful and all that crap 4th of July. Please don't blow up any goddamned armored trucks full of fireworks. I'm still trying to figure that one out. I don't understand. Why would you fucking light up a goddamn truck and try to fucking blow up these goddamn fireworks? Every time I turn around, there's some idiot in the world doing something stupid. I'm just trying to enjoy my goddamn life, and morons and shit for brains are doing stupid things. Any fucking way, enjoy your goddamn weekend. Happy 4th of July.